What you are about to hear is not just a story from the distant past. It is a moment in history so intense, so improbable, that even today military pilots struggle to imagine how it happened. And yet it did. And the decisions made in that moment, in the darkness over a sleeping city, changed not only one battle, but the belief of millions in a time of despair. Before we begin, let me ask you something. When everything you rely on fails, your tools, your weapons, your advantages, what remains? What do you have left? If your life depended on choosing in the next 2 seconds, what would you do? Keep that question in your mind, because by the end of this story, you will know how one young pilot answered it. Tonight, you're going to hear a true account that almost vanished into the footnotes of World War II, a story that Soviet citizens once told with pride, but that much of the world never heard. And yet, it deserves to be remembered, not because it is dramatic, but because it reveals what a human being is capable of when the world around him collapses. And if you stay with me, you will discover not only what happened, but how and why, and the surprising ripple effects that followed. Let's begin. Summer 1941. The German invasion of the Soviet Union is only weeks old, but the scale of destruction is already catastrophic. Cities burn. Millions flee. Entire armies dissolve under the weight of the assault. And in Moscow, the heart of the Soviet Union, fear spreads faster than news itself. Air raid sirens cry into the night. Anti-aircraft crews sleep next to their guns. Families wait in basements, silent, not wanting to imagine what tomorrow may bring. And in this darkness, something else grows. Doubt. Doubt that the city can be protected. Doubt that the Red Army can hold the line. Doubt that the Luftwaffe, the most formidable air force in the world at that moment, can be stopped. But history shows us something important. Doubt is a seed that can either destroy or transform. And what happens next will decide which path the people of Moscow take, because on one warm August night, a German bomber slips through the defensive screen. One bomber, but enough to kill hundreds if it reaches its target. And the man sent to stop it is a young pilot few people outside his regiment even know by name, Viktor Talalikhin. If this is the first time you've heard that name, stay with me. By the end of this story, you will never forget it. Now, imagine the scene, a quiet airfield on the edge of Moscow. Pilots lie on their coats staring at the stars. Ground crews smoke in silence. Engines sit cold and still. Everyone waits, because waiting in war can be just as frightening as action. Then, without warning, an officer rushes from the command hut. Enemy bombers approaching. Prepare for interception. Count the heartbeats in the silence that follows. 1, 2, 3, and then motion. Ground crews sprint. Pilots run for their aircraft. Engines roar to life. Viktor climbs into his I-16, a fighter already outdated by 1941, a relic compared to the German Bf-109s, but tonight he has no choice. This is the machine he must fight with. He straps in, closes the canopy, and pushes the throttle forward. The runway disappears under him. The nose rises, and in seconds he's alone in the night sky. Now pause for a moment and picture it as clearly as you can. Not a modern jet cockpit with digital displays. Not radar screens. Not night vision optics. Nothing but gauges, darkness, and instinct. How do you fight in that? But Viktor climbs anyway. Because someone has to meet the bombers. Someone has to stand between them and the city. And tonight, that someone is him. As he ascends, ground control gives him fragments of direction, headings, approximations, warnings. And then finally he sees it, a shape moving where no shape should be. A dark body cutting across the moonlit sky. The Heinkel He 111 bomber. This is the moment where most people would feel their heartbeat double. And yet Viktor leans forward, grips the stick tighter, and accelerates. His first attack is swift. Gunfire flashes. Traces carve the night. Bullets slam into the bomber's fuselage. But the Heinkel keeps going. It's wounded, but far from dead. Viktor circles back, making another pass. Then another. But here is where the story takes a turn few expect. On his third run, Viktor pulls the trigger, and nothing happens. His ammunition is gone. Take a moment to think about that. A lone fighter. No support. No ammunition. And ahead of him, a fully armed German bomber still heading for Moscow. Most pilots would disengage. Most would return to base. Most would convince themselves that there was nothing left to be done. But Viktor does something unthinkable. He stays. He watches the bomber's silhouette. He judges its distance, its speed, its movements. And he makes a decision that only a handful of pilots in all of history have ever made deliberately. He will use his aircraft, his entire aircraft, as a weapon. What kind of courage does that take? What kind of clarity? What kind of resolve? You'll have to answer that for yourself by the end. Viktor angles his I-16 for a ramming attack, one of the rarest and most dangerous maneuvers in aerial combat. He aligns his machine under the Heinkel's tail. The bomber's crew sees him coming, and they cannot believe what they're seeing, and then it happens. A flash. A shock wave. Metal tearing. Sparks exploding across the night sky. The I-16 rips through the bomber's tail section. The Heinkel lurches violently. With no stabilizer, it begins its final dive toward the forest below. And Viktor. His aircraft is crippled. Flames flicker along the fuselage. Smoke fills the cockpit. He knows he has seconds, not minutes, to save himself. He forces the canopy open. He throws himself into the night air. The world spins. The wind howls. The forest rushes up beneath him. And then the parachute deploys. He is alive. Somewhere behind him, the bomber hits the ground with a sound that rolls like thunder. Its mission is over. Moscow is safe for tonight. But here's a hook few people expect. This moment, this desperate, reckless collision in the night sky becomes one of the most powerful psychological turning points in the defense of Moscow. Because news spreads quickly. Soviet pilot has rammed a German bomber in midair and survived. People whisper the story to each other in bread lines. Pilots repeat it in barracks before dawn. Civilians read it in newspapers and feel, perhaps for the first time that summer, that the capital can endure. That's the power of one action. One decision. One person refusing to let the enemy pass. But Viktor's story doesn't end there. And if you're still listening, stay with me, because this next part is just as important and just as gripping. After the ramming, Viktor returns to duty. He doesn't become a ceremonial figure. He doesn't become a poster on a wall, not yet. He flies again, and again, and again. The war is unrelenting, and he is needed. But only a few months later, in another fierce air battle, Viktor is killed. 22 years old. A national hero. Gone in seconds. War takes even the bravest, and yet his story remains. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was revealing. It showed what a single human being can do with nothing left but resolve. It showed that even outdated machines in skilled hands can change the course of events. It showed that courage is not abstract. It is a choice made in a moment. And here, at the end of our journey, I want to leave you with a final hook, a thought that stays with you long after this video ends. When Viktor climbed into that cockpit, he did not know his name would one day be spoken by strangers decades later. He did not know his story would survive him. He did not know that a modern audience, including you, would listen to the details of his final battle. He simply did what he believed had to be done. And that is the kind of story that never fades.